Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next Foreman community demo. Ken Gilvin here to host, as always, on a beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in Scotland. Although it is quite lucky because yesterday we got the most amazing thunderstorm, and I thought we were going to get power cuts and all sorts. So hopefully that won't happen today. But it looks fine just now, so that's all fine. So it's your usual host, and I've just realized I've got the wrong slide open. I've got the last slide instead of the first slide. This is terrible. What kind of presenter am I? So it's the usual mix of everything today. We've got new plugins, we've got updates to plugins, we've got tooling changes, we've got all sorts of things. The usual comments apply. Do upgrade the quality of the YouTube stream. It always defaults to something incredibly terrible. So please do click that button and change it to something higher definition so you can see all the text on the screen. If you want to get involved, IRC or the YouTube Live are both fine. Twitter, kind of look at it, but realistically, it's not great for this kind of live demo. So IRC and YouTube, I'll keep an eye on both of those. Please do ask your questions or make your comments, and I'll make sure those get across to the presenters. It's a busy day today. We've got a lot of people on, so it's going to be great. Quick overview and some comments as well. So if you haven't seen in the last week or so, Foreman 1.15.1 and Catello 3.4.1 have both been released, which are fantastic. So do get upgrading and let us know your concerns or issues, or indeed your happy surprises with those. Our 8th birthday is coming up next month. We already have, I think, 3 events confirmed, and I'm trying to get some more organized. So if you're interested in either going to an event or organizing an event, then get in touch with me, and I can help with that. And the events that we know of already on the calendar, I'm probably going to do a dedicated page again in the next week or so, and then you can find all the information in one place. So yes, we have lots of content to talk about today, and so because we have lots of content to talk about today, I'm going to jump straight into the presenters. So we're going to start with Ivan, who's going to talk to us about where we're getting to with Foreman maintain. Ivan.
Okay. Hello, let me share my screen. So yeah, this is the one that I wanted to do last time. So before getting to that, just know that we finally moved the Foreman maintain onto the Foreman organization. So if you're searching for it, please go ahead, it's there. And what I would like to show today is actually the full entire scenario that we'll try to put together for the upgrades. Just background for why we are doing this is to make it easier to do various maintenance tasks with the Foreman and satellite, so that you don't need always to search for the right documentation and figure stuff. So for the upgrades themselves, we try to do some pre-upgrade checks first and make sure that we let you upgrade once it's safe to do, and if there is something you should resolve with your old version, you can still do that before it's too late. And after that, we try to also set up the maintenance mode, configure the new repositories, run the upgrades, run the post-upgrade checks, and so on. So this is what I will actually show you today and how it works. So as the README says, this tool should be used or be possible to use with multiple versions at the same time. So you don't need to care which version of Foreman maintain you are running against your instance. And we support both the upstream as a Foreman and the downstream as a satellite, which is just a specific version of the Foreman and plugins together. So my demo is based on the satellite installation here, and I will run the upgrade from the 6.1 that I'm having right now to 6.2. Let me just remove these files so that I can fetched. So once I run this, you can see that we are running the checks before the upgrading, and it already found that there is something that should be resolved before I continue. I will decide that I don't want to get it fixed by the script itself, so I got offered that I could delete all tasks that are probably not valid anymore. But when I will not do that, what it should do at the end, once finished with other tasks, is that some step failed and I should resolve that and then continue. Or if it's something that I consider false positive, I can wipe this check so that it doesn't like fail at this point. So I'll just use this option here. Of course, you should rather fix the check that's failing, but there can be some possibilities that it's wrong. So it still like notifies that something is wrong, but we will see that when I don't resolve it now, I will actually get to the next steps. And so the pre-upgrade checks failed, and it let me continue. And it also like notifies me now that I'm going to start with the modification part of the upgrade. And since then, I should be aware that the instance might not be like ready for business for a while. So I will continue with this, and you can see that, there was the maintenance mode turned on, and what it means, since we don't have the proper maintenance mode right now in the Foreman, what it should do is setting up the IP tables. There's probably something wrong here because I still get there, but I need to check that. Anyway, the maintenance mode should be done via the IP tables so that we can still reach the instance from the instance itself, but from the external interfaces, you can't get there, and that's to prevent you to do something during the inside the instance during the upgrade is running, which might be pretty unsafe thing to do. So, but we see that then we felt something with in the upgrades themselves, or not. I see there was there's some step missing there, which actually disabled the maintenance mode. And let me check why. So the problem is that I actually it was more intelligent than the presenter here, because while running the migrations, it failed on setting up the repositories, and since it failed with the first migration steps, it actually tried to roll back the pre-migration steps, so that because it knew that we have not changed anything to the instance itself since the first step just failed. So what we actually did is that we ran the post migrations that actually turn or revert the steps that we did in the pre-migrations, and then like still run the post upgrade checks, and everything was fine. So I think it doesn't make sense to go too much deeper without telling at least something about the phases we are talking about here. So when I have the upgrade to SATAR 6.2 scenario, it consists of the pre-upgrade checks that just tell you if something is or if everything is fine and let you fix that. And at this phase, nothing really terrible happens to your system in terms of uptime. In the pre-migrations, we do just the preparations, such as turning on the maintenance mode, or, for example, disabling the sync plans in the catalog side before going to the migrations themselves. So then we have the migrations that actually, update the repositories, run the packaging updates, run the installer, and so on. And the post-migrations then actually are the opposite side of the pre-migration. So if we turn on the maintenance mode in the pre-migrations, in the post-migrations, we actually turn them off, and so on. So what you see, and I haven't read at the beginning, is that my upgrade failed with the first step of the migrations, and in that case, we actually think that the pre-migrations were revertible, so that we could just get you still to the phase before you were upgraded. So yeah, I had there another bug that I need to last minute fix, so it might also cause this confusion. So I don't have the since you see that I have some issues with my setup, I don't have the full upgrades running, but for the one thing that you might notice is that we store the information about the upgrade run in our YAML file, so that like if something goes wrong in the middle of the upgrades, we actually remember what was already run and doesn't need to be run again. And this should make it easier to actually rerun these commands several times when something goes odd, and we should help with the upgrade steps itself. So yeah, due to last minute fixes, I probably broke something there. But the important information for you is that the maintenance mode is using the IP tables for now, and we have different handling for the different failure scenarios in between, and we store the state in the middle of the run if needed. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ivan. I don't see any questions for you just now. So I think just hang around and we'll move on for now. And if I get any questions, I'll let you know. So we're going to come back to Shim, who's still setting up. So I'm going to jump forward to Andra, who's going to, first of all, which one do you want to do first? Do you want to do templates or do you want to do ASCAP?
I'm going to do the templates first.
Templates it is then. Okay. So what's new in Foreman template land?
Okay, so Foreman template allows you to export and import your templates into Foreman, and until recently it was done using a reg task, but we decided to add API endpoints as well, and this actually will be the preferred way to import and export your templates. And I added the last missing endpoint for export, which is what I'm going to show you now. I have exports folder that is empty, and now I'm going to export the templates. I'm actually going to copy paste the command because it's quite long, and I don't want to type it. Like that, and I should get my templates exported in just a second. If I check my export folder, you can see that they are there. So that was pretty straightforward. And the second thing I wanted to show is how you can import the lock templates and how you can handle locking during imports. Because if we take a look, you can templates that are shipped with Foreman are locked by default. As you can see, it's indicated by this lock, and I have here a demo template which has some content and is locked, and it has just some dummy text. And now we'll try to actually import the templates that I have just exported. Again, I'll just copy paste the command. But before I do that, I'll just change the template so we can see the difference. Let's change it to something else. Now let's try actually to import the templates, and as you can see, you get some sort of output telling you about the status of what just happened. And there should be, you can see that many template imports failed. And if I take a look at my demo template, you can see that the content is actually the same. And the reason for why the content is the same and so many templates failed is because they're locked, and you're not allowed to override the locked templates by default. But if you wish to do so, you can add a force parameter, and if we check the template again, you can see that it has changed. So we've basically forced override the content of the template and synced it even though it was locked. And that's basically it.
Cool. That's really nice. Is there a plan to maybe, I'm guessing you already know this, but are you going to extend those messages to say why things failed? Because I can imagine, I mean, I guess right now the only real situation is that it was locked, right? But there could potentially be other failures in the future.
Yeah, there could be other failures, and yeah, there are definitely plans to expand in this area and do some additional changes that would provide us with better messaging and better feedback to let us know what's going on there.
Cool. That's really nice. It's nice to see that coming along. Obviously, since it's kind of one of my original plugins, it's nice to see it taking some life because I don't have time to maintain it. So good work there. Right, quickly back to my slides so I can introduce your next bit. So also you've been doing some work on SCAP as well.
Yeah, basically we identified a performance issue with searching when users have a large number of compliance reports. And there were some inefficient SQL queries, and we also found out that we duplicate the messages that are created when report is imported, and we really don't have to do that. We can reuse the existing messages because they are the same. And so we made some changes, and the messages shouldn't be duplicated now. But if you have been using OpenSCAP for some time, you still have those duplicated messages in your database, and that's why we created a rake task that is supposed to clean your database and deduplicate these messages. So if you run rake, Foreman, OpenSCAP clean messages, this should clean up your database. Just a warning, it actually needs to go through all your reports and check them, so it can take quite a lot of time. So I would recommend you to delete the old reports that you don't need anymore, and then run this task, so it goes a little bit faster. That's basically all.
Cool. That's nice. It's always nice to see performance improvements. One of those tasks you run overnight, I guess. Okay, so moving on. I don't see any questions for you, Andres, so thanks very much for that. Moving on, it's going to be Justin up next, talking about Gopher, or indeed the lack of Gopher, which I think will make people happy, right?
Yep, hopefully so. So I'm just going to I've got a few slides I've prepared I'm going to go through. The current problem is that Cotillo Agent provides two functions, or I should say Gopher-D within Cotillo Agent provides two functions. It does remote actions that are not via remote execution, such as install packages and errata. It also uploads information used for errata calculations. So if you're a user of Cotillo and you're using remote execution, you still have to be running Gopher-D on the clients for your errata to show up and your package applicability. The more clients that are running Gopher, the higher your Cupid memory usage on the Foreman server. So when at a larger scale, not even that high, 1,000 clients, you start needing more memory than you may want to have on your Foreman server. So the solution is we moved the bound repository uploading, so that report that allows us to calculate package and errata applicability into a Yum plugin. And it's currently installed via Cotillo Agent as well, the package. So now Gopher-D does not need to be run for applicable errata. However, when it is running, it will also attempt to upload the package profile in addition to the Yum plugin. So this sort of covers some use cases that are not covered, which I'll get into in a second. You can upload the profile manually using Cotillo-enabled repos upload, and it's now cached, so we're not going to the server quite as often. You can force it, and I think my font increased at some point. So you can force it with --force. We've also added --force to Cotillo package upload, which is the profile upload that occurs. This is available in 3.4.1. Users that are currently running Gopher-D should see little to no difference at all. If you decide to not run Gopher-D, there are some very slight differences that I'm hoping no users will notice, but I'll show you that in a second. Here's an example Yum install. Now you'll see this uploading enabled repositories report at the end of any Yum action. When in Gopherless mode, modifying the redhat.repo file will not force an update, whereas it would previously. If Yum is never invoked, then a profile will not be updated and errata will not be calculated. So that's very important. Yum may need to be invoked in places where it wasn't previously if you're not using Gopher. Generally, that's not a big deal, as the Red Hat repo file was actually updated by Yum. So in 99% of the cases, you had to perform a Yum update for that file to get updated anyways. So what will trigger an update to calculate errata? If Gopher D is running, all of these things will, the manual editing, Yum config manager, which we don't really recommend you use, but there may be some users of it, and subscription manager repos. In Gopherless mode, and this actually should be yes, sorry about that. In Gopherless mode, manual editing of repos, Yum config manager, and subscription manager register will not upload that profile. So some Yum action, whether it be a Yum install, a Yum repo list, needs to occur. When you're registering a system, that's kind of the most important part, especially with an activation key. Again, some Yum action will need to occur. And if you're using our stock provisioning templates, that happens automatically. No need to worry about it. It's more if you're doing something manually and you're not seeing errata or package applicability show up, then make sure Yum something is run to force that profile to be uploaded. And that is it.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Justin. Is it fair to say that this is, what's the word I want to use? I was about to say tech preview, but that's misleading. It's something you want people to go and play with, right? Before you get rid of Gopher entirely.
Well, it is. However, there's some people today that aren't using Gopher at all. They're using remote execution for these remote actions. So you can play with it, but I mean, most users, I think, can shut down Gopher D and notice no difference whatsoever.
Sure, fair enough. And the Yum thing, the fact that it relies on Yum, now, my knowledge of Yum is shaky at best, as we all know, but that will pick up, because that's run right at the end, it'll pick up even if you change the file in the same Yum transaction, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, cool. Because there are definitely situations where you don't pick up things in the transaction that you change them in, right? Puppet's terrible for that. So
yeah, Yum, at the end, we're actually sort of calling out to a new instance of Yum, of the Yum library. So any changes are picked up there at the end.
Yeah, so I thought. Okay, cool. In that case, fantastic. I'm not seeing any questions, although there are definitely people who, Kenny's definitely like, yay, bye-bye Gopher. Right, okay, moving on then. So we're going to speak to Marek and talking about some new roles.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to show something about the roles, but I'll start with a little bit of explanation. So I guess most of you already know that Foreman supports something called organizations, which have probably two use cases. One is for organizing your resources into a separate organization. So as you can see in my setup here, I have 3 organizations. And for example, when I go to the domains list in here, I can see several domains in here. And when I choose a specific organization like this one, I'll have a subset of these domains. I can also choose a different one, which I'm going to use in a moment. And you can see that in this organization, I have just one domain. So that's one use case. Second use case is that you actually want to use that for the multi-tenancy setups, where these organizations are completely isolated. And you probably want to have separate admins for each organization, the people responsible for managing the whole organization and all resources in that organization. So for that, you could define a role, set up all the filters with all the permissions that are required. And recently, roles were enabled to be assigned to organizations. So that's a bit simpler, but putting all filters together, and don't forget, any filter can be pretty hard, which is why we introduced a new role. So in the list of roles in here, you can see all the built-in roles are, by the way, not clickable. So you probably know we had some like manager, which contained all the permissions, and you could use that if you wanted to delegate the administration of your whole foreman to someone. But there's a new one called organization admin. So organization admin serves for this purpose, and it's basically very similar to the manager one, but the only difference is that the organization admin doesn't contain the permissions for organizations, for managing other organizations. So you can use this role as a good base for specific admins of your organization. The workflow is that you need to take this role and clone it. So you prepare the organization admin role for your organization. So for example, I can create and a role that will serve as the administrators of the organization extra. And here you just assign the organization. So this will create a new clone. This will copy all the permissions there. By the way, this role, this original role, contains also all permissions. Oops. Yeah, seems like I select. Oh, okay. There's another bug, but there's a pull request for it already. It's not related to that. I'll use a different organization. Basically, the bug is that you can't assign an organization to a role which is invalid. There are some resources that are not in that organization. So I'm going to use a different organization. I'll also change the name. This one should be fine. So this way you create a new organization that will serve as a collection of permissions to actually administer some organization. So you can assign this role to a user. Now I'll be using the extra admin here, but I need to change the organization I'm going to demonstrate it on. So it's going to be user scope to the ABCDE organization. And this user currently has no role. So if I change the browser, okay, for some reason yeah, it's here. So if I log in here with the user, because of the fact I assign him only to a specific organization ABCD, he doesn't see any other organizations, only that one. And because he doesn't have any permissions in here, he can't do much, just look at the tasks maybe, and there might be some generic tasks. But to actually see how that changes when I give that user the role for managing of that organizations or that specific organization, we can see that after I refresh the page under that user, I'll see all the menus. And for example, if I go to the all hosts, I see a limited number of them, just 3 of them, even though in my system I have tens of them. The same for all the resources that are scopable by organization. So that way you can easily create a role and delegate the whole administration of organization to a user. There's just one thing to keep in mind. If we look back to the roles, these built-in roles can be updated automatically when the new version of Foreman is released. And also they are extended by the plugins that are using the new plugin DSL. So basically, these roles will always contain all the permissions that are available. If you do a clone, right now it don't inherit new permissions. So that's something we want to address. So we introduced recently, and I think I've demoed it a few demos ago, we keep the link to the role that it was used for cloning. So we might improve that so that also changes in the organization admin built-in role will propagate to all the clones. And I guess that's it from my side, unless there are any questions.
Super, thanks. Don't see any questions right now, although I do get an echo from you. There we go. Not quite sure what happened there. So yes, I don't see any questions right now. I think that's really awesome. I think configuring the RBAC stuff around organizations' locations has always been painful. So it's really, really nice to see that getting a bit of love. So well done there. Hang around. If there's any questions, I'll let you know. In the meantime, we're going to move on to Adam, and we're going to talk about remote execution very quickly, I guess.
Hello. So for those who don't know about remote execution, it is a plugin which can enable the user to execute scripts over SSH on remote hosts. In the upper tab, I have one of the services which connects to those hosts. And we use public keys for authentication when we try to connect to the remote hosts. And I added support for Kerberos authentication for environments which support it. If I try to run a job, we can see a bunch of output. we can see that it tries to authenticate using the public key, and it apparently fails because it tries another method, which is the Kerberos one, and it fails too, because I don't have the ticket granting ticket. It's the only requirement for this. So when I obtain it and run the command again, we can see that it tried to use the public key and it failed, and then it tried the Kerberos authentication, and that's basically the whole thing. It can be enabled and disabled on a per smart proxy basis. And the only requirement is to have the ticket granting ticket available to the user who's opening the connections.
Nice and
So
simple.
that would be about it.
Yeah, nice and simple, straightforward. But it's always good because, yeah, not everyone likes SSH, right? If you've already got, I don't know, free IPA in place, this is a much better idea. Sorry about the traffic. It's roasting here in Scotland, so I have to have all the windows open. Yes, I guess if you've already got your system set up, why would you want to use anything else, right? So cool, really, really nice. Oh, I think there's a question coming. I'm going to give him just a few seconds. But he's not written in IRC yet, so I might have to move on and come back to it. Unless he's really quick. He's just put question in IRC. This is not helpful. Oh, here we go. Right. So does this? So this doesn't work from the web UI. So there's no ticket granting ticket passed via the browser.
No, not so far. It wasn't our goal from the beginning to do it that way, but it could be.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those interesting questions, right? Because is it always going to be the same user that's logged in as the one trying to execute things? It's like sometimes yes, sometimes no. So I guess, yeah. Well, there's a feature request there, I guess. Okay, cool. Moving on then. So next up, we have got Martin, who's going to be talking to us about using remote databases.
Hello, can you share my screen? Okay, so here we are. Well, the last sprint I was working on support for Catalog with remote Postgres databases, and I will show you how to install Postgres, Catalog server with both databases, one for Candlepin and one for Foreman on remote server. As for the environment I have here now is one VM where I want to install the Catalog server, and one VM where I pre-install the Postgres instance that has two empty databases, one for Candlepin and one for Foreman available, and the server is also accepting only SSL secured connections from the remote machines. So for now, I have pre-installed the Catalog here to save some time, but the Catalog server is now down. Let's see it here, and there are also no running database connections to any Postgres. So you can see here. Before we start installing, we need to prepare our root certificate for the Postgres. We need to put it in the system store for Candlepin to verify. So that's that needs to go on the etc PKI CTrust source on course, and this is the CA chain for the Postgres server, and then we will have to update the CTrust to install the certificates into internal database. And that's it. We assume that on the Postgres server there are two databases created. They are empty, and we have for our user we have granted permissions to create a schema such as tables, indexes, and so on. So I've prepared the installer command into a script. So I will show you here, and I run it. And while it's running, I'll explain the options that we have. Yeah, so from the beginning, there is the admin password. This is quite obvious. And with this line, here starts options for setting up Foreman database. There is host that is leading to the Postgres. There is password and the database name. And there is DB SSL mode, which we have to set to verify full. Because the default is prefer, which doesn't do the root certificate verification. So we are enforcing the verification with this option. And also we need to provide the path to the CA certificate of the Postgres server. The installer will store it at the place where Rails needs it to be. So that verification could happen. The other options are for Candlepin database. They are same. It's the Postgres server database name, password, and also the SSL mode setting to true. The verification is there by default. We also used the manage DB to false, so that the installer doesn't try to create the database on the local Postgres server. And the last option is just for disabling the memory checks, because my virtual machine is quite small. Yeah, during the installation, all the migrations and database creation scripts are running. They are running with the new configuration that was provided via the installer parameters. So after the installation finish, also the Foreman rake commands will use the right database, and also the other parts of the systems. Well, the installer finished, so it's finished successfully. We can check that the catalog is running, and we can see that there are new connections to the Postgres server. We can see that the IP address here belongs to the right server. You can see it here. In this match. Yeah, and that's for me.
Cool. Superb. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've had these options in the installer for a long time, right? Is this just a case of tidying things up?
Yeah, my work was mainly on exposing some of the missing options in the installer. One part was on Candlepin side, and we didn't have support for root certificates for Foreman database. That was quite tricky one, because it doesn't have much documentation. Probably much of the users on the internet doesn't use this option, so it was quite tricky. But yeah.
Okay, that's cool. It's nice to have that tied up. We should definitely get that, if necessary. We should definitely get these examples up into the manual, because I think this is something people want to do quite often. So yeah,
that's good fun.
Definitely. Cool. I don't see any other questions just now, so I think we're going to move on. And I'm delighted to welcome a new voice to the community demo today, as we have Matthias from Matix, who have been working on a plugin that sits on top of Catello to provide, I guess, similar functionality for SUSE. So he's come on to tell us about that. So Matthias, over to you, I guess.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. As already said, I'm going to talk about the new plugin Foreman SCC Manager. I'm just starting sharing the screen. Did it work?
Yes, indeed.
We wanted to start support for SUSE in Catello, and therefore we introduced a new menu entry under content, which is called SUSE subscription. And if you start that, you can enter.
Just so you know, what we're seeing at the moment is the Hangout itself, rather than any Foreman interface. I don't know if you shared a specific window.
Okay. A moment. Yes, sorry, this is the right one.
Oh, that's okay. Cool. Yes, we see that.
So now we have this new menu entry, SUSE subscriptions, and here you can add your SUSE Customer Center credentials in a new account model, and you can try the connectivity to SUSE. In this case, of course, it's not working. Then, if you have a real account there, oops, sorry. The test should actually work. And now there's a sync button where this plugin logs into SUSE and searches for all the registered products and repositories. And this is actually done on the background task because it takes some time. And now let's assume we have already synced. Then we see there are 194 products available, and we can list them all by clicking here. And as you can see, there's already one product pre-selected because I installed it before, but we can also check another one and go down and submit. Then it will be added to the products list in Catello, including all the repositories. And I can show you in the next page in the products. Down here. We see now that there are several products from the SUSE server just transferred over to Catello, including a number of repositories. And that way you can deliver content from SUSE to your hosts on Catello. This is a nice thing. We need it because doing that by hand involves a lot of copy and paste, and this can go horribly wrong at some points. And there's another thing. If you look into the product and search for this and look at the URL, it involves a very long security token here, and we figured out that token changes over time. So every time you hit sync in the SCC manager, this token gets updated. So you might be connected to SUSE despite they changed your token there. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Awesome. That genuinely, I mean that is awesome. It is really, really nice to see. Well, firstly to see expanding support for other OSs. Obviously, when the situation's right, it's great to see Catello sort of getting some community going there. I think there's not much that's generally built on top of Catello, so really, really great to see that, and just great to have you as part of the community as well. So thank you so much for building that. We might revisit this topic if there's demand. So people out there, if you're using SUSE, if you want to see more about this plugin, get in touch. Let me know what you want to see and what you'd like to know. And I guess, are you guys on the mailing list?
Yeah.
So again, if you've got questions, fire something onto the mailing list and they'll try and help out. So in the meantime, I don't just see any live questions for you, Matthias. So thank you again for that.
Thank you.
And then so that's one new plugin, but today's a special day. I don't just have one new plugin for you, I have two new plugins for you. So Marek's back to talk to us about Virtwho.
All right. So hopefully you can see my screen now. So the new plugin that I'm going to talk about today, it was developed for the last 2 months, I guess. And basically, it focuses on helping you with the installation and configuration of the Virtwho. So for those of you who don't know or never heard of this term Virtwho, so that's something that might be interesting for you if you have a lot of Red Hat subscriptions and you have also a lot of virtual machines and you want to use the VDC subscriptions, which are for this purpose. So you basically install or use these VDC subscriptions on the virtual hosts and don't have to have a separate subscription for every physical host, or using subscriptions for physical hosts on these virtual machines. But in order to do that, you need to somehow let Candlepin, if you are using Foreman with Catello, so you need to somehow let Candlepin know that this VM is running on this hypervisor, so that it correctly maps the subscription. And that's what Virtwho is for. But it's also, it can be used with different environments. Not necessarily Foreman and Catello, but you can also use it for reporting to Satellite 5 or even the Red Hat Customer Portal, and therefore it offers a lot of options that you need to configure. And there were a lot of users struggling with finding the right combination of these options, which is why we put together this plugin that should make the Virtwho configuration as easy as possible. And I'm going to present how it's supposed to work. So if you're dealing with that and install the plugin, there's a new item in this menu, infrastructure Virtwho configurations. So the idea is, because the Virtwho can talk to many hypervisors, so the idea is that every hypervisor configuration is a separate entity in here. And for each hypervisor, you're creating one. So if you go to this page, there's an empty page with some information about what this is useful for. And since I'm in this organization, I don't have any configuration here yet. But if I go to any organizations, you can see on this page, you would see all existing Virtwho configurations in your system. So let's say you want to create a new one. So there's a quite simple form, I would say, where you need to provide some information, like information about the hypervisor you're going to scan for the VMs. So you can give it some name, let's say my local libvirt. Then you need to choose the organization, which I was talking about previously, because Candlepin is always requiring you to provide the organization for which you are uploading the report. If you selected an organization before and you are in that context already, this field is not presented and it will be automatically filled to this organization. So then you can choose one of the supported hypervisors. So this is the list coming from what Virtwho supports. There's just one exception for Ref. There were 2 ways how to connect to that. We decided it's better to use RevM instead of the VDSM provider. But you can choose any of this. I'm going to use libvirt. If you're uncertain about the values, all the fields should have a good description in here. So for libvirt, it's the only exception to the rest of here. It doesn't support username and password authentication. You need to set up the SSH key. And you need to provide, this would be the right URL. So you need to provide the target where it connects to and then some name. For others, you would need to also provide a password. This is usually all you have to do. The rest are the default and recommended values, but you can change them if you have the need for it. So for example, you can choose other interval, how often it scans the hypervisor. That's usually useful if you have many VMs on the hypervisor. You don't want to create 2 big reports. Also, we have the name satellite here because that also comes from the Virtwho, which is traditionally used with the Satellite 6. but this is basically the FQDN of the server where it reports where the Verdwho reports the results that it saw on the hypervisor to. And it defaults to the same value that it is to be found under settings as the Foreman URL. Also, there are other options that you can limit, like if you want to filter the phone VMs by whitelist or blacklist. We also support regular expressions there. But by default, you don't have to change anything in here. So basically, just provide the credentials for the hypervisor. And then once you click submit, we prepare the configuration that, I was just testing, I was just testing a patch. So I suppose, I need to provide some password in here. Sorry for that. So after you submit that, we provide you an easy way how to deploy that configuration. So we provide Hammer plugin for that as well. So if you have Hammer installed, you can just simply run this Hammer command, and it will install the Verdwho. It will create a configuration for it. It will start the service. So the Verdwho will start sending reports back to your Foreman with Catalog. If you prefer to actually do it manually, you can use the script. Basically, what this Hammer plugin does is downloading this configuration script that you can find in here and deploys that for you. But if you prefer, for some reason, to not install Hammer, like you don't want to have a Ruby dependency there, for example, you can use the script. You can easily copy to clipboard. You can download the script, put it on the server, and run it there. It does the same thing. So this, and you can always go back and edit the configuration. So let's say I have a password in here, so now it should also be fine for delivered, I guess. So I just change the hypervisor type. I change whatever parameter, and the script is always that reflects that. So I can rerun that, and it would reconfigure the Verdwho. Now, if I go back to the list of the Verdwho configurations in my system, I see also some basic status about that. So it tells me I didn't receive any report for that configuration yet. And therefore, you can use also this plugin for a basic monitoring of that. I'm going to cheat a bit, and I'll try to show what would happen if some report came, because I don't have the right now. But if some report comes, the status in here changes and tells you that the last report was received on this specific date and time. And based on the interval in here, it would also report that the report didn't or hasn't arrived on time. If there would be no report coming from here after there was at least one success for 2 hours, it would tell you there was no update. It's not an error state because Verdwho doesn't send reports if it doesn't see any change on the hypervisor, but at least it gives you some information about something might be wrong, for example, some network issue or something, if you are sure that there was some change on the hypervisor. And one more thing I wanted to show for the UI, we also provide a dashboard widget for these configurations. Dashboard, if you don't know, that's the page that displays various information from Foreman and automatically refreshes every now and then. So if you just want to see status of your infrastructure, you can add the dashboard widget in here, and it's this one. And you can see configurations in various states. So one is OK, which means there was a report recently. That's the one that I just showed with the green mark. But there's also one without any report. If there would be no change, you would see it under here. And also, if there are configurations with no report change, you would see a list of last 3 in here. So you can easily see if something wrong is going on. It's also clickable, so you can easily search for configurations of a given state like this. For all you've seen in here through UI, we also support API. So it's documented using the API doc, so you can see that there are endpoints for all the operations. And also, as I said, we have the Hammer plugin, so I'm just going to show.
We're really tight on time, just so you know, Mark.
Yeah, I'll wrap up in a minute. So you can see that we have the commands for managing the configurations, and you can do the deploy as I showed you that we use it for the deploying of the Verdwho configuration itself. And last thing I wanted to show is the plugin, so is the manual. So we have all I showed here documented here in the plugin manual. One thing that's different to other Foreman plugins, the code lives in Cuttle repos because Cuttle is the dependency of this, and there's no support installer yet just because of this. But to install the plugins very easy. It's just about running these three commands, running installation and then updating the database, and then everything should be ready for use. And that's about it.
Fantastic. I'm going to skip questions because I've got to get Shim in here as well before we run out of time. So if you do have questions from Eric, jump on IRC or jump into the mailing list and get those questions to him. So moving straight on, I'm going to bring in Shim, who's just got a little bit of time to talk to us about a development tool he's been working on. Shim.
Hey. So the development tool I was working on, I have created a nice migration generator who is that actually creates a migration file for your plugin. Here it is how it runs. So you are specifying that you want to generate a plugin migration. The name of the migration, test migration, and for which plugin are you creating it. -- plugin name, Foreman build history. This is a plugin that I'm maintaining, so I have used it as a guinea pig. I am, of course, in the Foreman core directory. So I'm running this generator, and it creates a new migration file inside my plugin. So if I go to my Foreman build history DB migrations, I will see the newly created test migration. So why did I need a new generator when you could actually just generate a regular migration and then copy it to the plugin? Why did I bother with a generator? Now, if you look closely at the file name, it is suffixed by the name of my plugin, Foreman build history, and this is really useful because Rails now Rails migrations actually have a new option that you can specify, and this option runs the migrations that are suffixed by a pre-specified suffix. So right now I am running only migrations for my plugin, and in a second you will see that it actually migrates my database and with a new migration. As you can see, the migration is already there. Why is it nice? Because it also has another option. You can migrate it to version equals 0, and then the migration, all the migrations from the same scope will be actually migrated back or reverted. This is actually a first step to actually enable you to install and uninstall your plugin, because one of the main problems with installing and uninstalling plugins was the residues that are left in the database, even when you actually remove the gem from your system. This is a solution to that problem. It's not very it's not the whole solution, but I think it's a good start. So that's basically what I have for it. It's all documented in the how to create a plugin wiki page. Feel free to use it.
Super. Definitely good. Since we've had new plugins on the show today, it's a really good time to show something like that. I think we do have a problem with uninstalling plugins, so that I do like that side of things. More discussion about that is good. We are out of time, so I don't have time to show you metrics today, which is just as well because I didn't actually generate any. I thought this might happen. I think you can agree from today's rather busy demo that there's lots going on, so that's fine. Hopefully we'll have metrics for you next time. So at the top of the hour, thank you to all my presenters for taking the time out of their busy days to come and talk with us today. Thank you for watching. You know where to find us if you want to continue the discussion. But for today, thanks for watching and do take care.